are visiting Vrindavan virtually because of circumstance. And on the screen you see Radha Kunda, and on the left is Radharani, and the kund is not different than Radharani, confirmed by our scriptural authorities. And it's the most sacred place in the whole universe. So let us remember, when you go to a sacred place, you go in a humble mood and a prayerful mood and a submissive mood. We pray for the mercy of Srimati Radharani. And to get the mercy of Radharani, our teachings are, you pray for the mercy of those who have the mercy of Radharani. And she gives you the mercy of Krishna. We're going to visit 3 places, and this nice map shows little arrows where those places are. The first one is where the number 2 shows. That's the place where Raghunath Das Goswami, right here, this arrow, Raghunath Das Goswami established a temple for Radha Krishna, and we'll hear about that temple, we'll hear about the deity, we'll hear about him. And then we're going to go up here, where this arrow shows, where it's a little off the path, but it's where Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur resided when he spent time at Radha Kunda. And then we'll end up here, a very important and sweet place, Malyahara Kund, where the pearl pastime took place. And we'll begin down here, visiting the temple of Radha Krishna, established by Raghunath Das Goswami. As you see in the image, there's where the place is. Of course, the angle is a little different, but it's the same place. The Radha Krishna temple. Over here, that's some nice offering before the deity that's pictured in this photograph. It's a small place and a very sweet place. And we ended by the last class yesterday by describing the Julanyatra area in Vrindavan. And because these are the first Radha Krishna deities in the whole of Radha Kunda that were installed, they're the first deities in Julanyatra to be placed on the swing. These Radha Krishna deities, we'll see shortly the deities close up. On the left side, you're going to see the entrance to the temple. And the right side is what you see when you go inside. It's a small place. And here's the deities of Radha Krishna. The history behind the deities has everything to do with the history behind the excavation of Radha Kunda. The excavation of Radha Kunda happened by the will of the Supreme Lord. The history goes like this. There was a wealthy man, businessman, etc., from West Bengal. And he had accumulated enough money that his plan was he was going to go to Badrinath and establish a temple in Badrinath. In the course of his travels to Badrinath, the deity in Badrinath appeared to him in a dream and instructed him to go to Vrindavan and use that money to build Radhakund and Shyamakund. So he came to Vrindavan. He met Raghunath Das Goswami, and the result is, this is a very old photograph. We've saw this photograph before. It's in the area of Vrindavan that was previously known as Arit. Arit is a shortened and corrupted version over time from the place where Aristasura was killed. And this is what it looked like when it was built, under the direction of Raghunath Das Goswami. And as the history goes, as the workers were digging and digging and digging, two things happened, but the one we'll mention just now, is they found these deities of Radha and Krishna in the earth where the kund was going to be established. So immediately they brought the Radha Krishna deities, these Radha Krishna deities, to Raghunath Das, who established this temple for them. And the procedure for maintenance of the kund looked like this. In certain cycles of time, the kund, the water is drained, and everything I think that has the wrong date. I think it's October 2020, not 2021. So the mud at the bottom of Radhakund is taken in buckets out, so the bottom is made, like everything else looks around where the steps are. But you probably had no idea how many steps there are. There's a lot of steps. And then there's this platform, as you see. And everybody gets into it. The steps are all muddied from the blackish mud. And then the mud then becomes a commodity to sell to visitors. You buy this blackish little stick of mud that's dried, and it becomes tilak. The local Brijbasis use that blackish tilak. And you see down in the far corner, it's another place. There's a platform over there as well, where the Brijbasis are taking mud from the bottom. There's another photograph where they're cleaning. And it's a big festival, and everyone gets into it. It's very, I'm sure they're chanting and so forth. So the excavation of Radhakund was credited to Raghunath Das Goswami. Raghunath Das Goswami took guidance from Jiva Goswami, because Jiva Goswami was a very practical acharya as well as a learned acharya, and he kind of oversaw what Raghunath Das was doing. These are the dates of Raghunath Das Goswami's life. What was going on in Europe around this time was very different than what was going on in India at this time. The division of his years goes like this. He lived to be 92 years old. For 31 years, he was with his family, the Majumdar family, in Saptagram. It's a part of West Bengal. He left his home when he was 31 and stayed with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu under the care of Sri Damodar for 16 years, and then he went to Vrindavan for 45 years. And he lived a long life. The painting that you see is a standard painting depicting a pastime, which we'll narrate shortly. It's by the side of the Jagannath temple. You see the water pouring down the side of the Jagannath temple. In this area, there's remnants of Jagannath Prasad that was in the Prasad stalls, went stale, and they throw it over here. And the cows come and eat up the Jagannath Prasad. But what the cows even wouldn't eat is what Raghunath Das took, and he washed the outside, the rotting part, leaving little kernels of uncooked hard rice, and that became his sustenance. From a Majumdar family, wealthy family, to living like a mendicant in a life of renunciation. He was the son of two very, very wealthy. Well, go back up. Yeah. In Gora Gonadesh Dipika, that's a book that gives a description of who's who in Gora Lila compared to Krishna Lila. And in Gora, so it's very authoritative. And in that Gora Gonadesh Dipika, it indicates that Raghunath Das is known to be a manifestation of three different manjaris. Rasa Manjari, Rati Manjari, and Bhanumati. My understanding of how that works is there's vibhutis or potencies of these personalities that are invested in Gora Lila personalities. It's not like there's three souls within his body or something like that. There's the mood or bhava, and the potency of these personalities are invested within him. We'll hear this term several times. Saptagram is the area where he lived. It's the actual place is a village, Krishnapur, and the town is Saptagram, and the district, just like Mayapur, is in the district of Nadia. So it was the district of Hooghly, and Saptagram is the town, and the little village is Krishnapur. That's where he was born, and that's where his parents lived. He was the son of Govardhan Majumdar. Govardhan had a brother, and his brother, Govardhan, and Hiranya was his brother's name. Govardhan was the only son. Raghunath was the only son, the son of Govardhan. And the family were landholders, and they had massive wealth. And so he was to inherit that wealth because he was the only son, the eldest and the only. But from childhood, he showed no interest in anything material, certainly not wealth. We hear the next major part of his life is his meeting of Haridas Thakur. The family priest of Majumdar family was Balaramacharya. Balaramacharya was a disciple of Yadunandana Acharya, and Yadunandana Acharya was an intimate disciple of Advaita Acharya. So remember this connection because we'll hear it several times. Advaita Acharya had disciples. One of those was Yadunanda Acharya, and one of his disciples was Balaramacharya. And Balaramacharya lived near where the Majumdar family lived, in a place he and his spiritual master lived in Chandpur. And after Haridas Thakur had that incident with Ramchandra Khan in Benapole, the next place we hear of Haridas is going to Chandapur, and he stayed in the residence of Balaramacharya as his guest, which means he was associating also with Yadunandan Acharya. And it was during this time that the Majumdar family invited Haridas Thakur. This much we know from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Haridas was invited to an assembly. The Majumdar family, very wealthy Vaishnavas, they arranged for gatherings where different spiritual topics were discussed. So during Haridas Thakur's visit, that topic of discussion was the chanting of the holy name. And it was during this period of time that Raghunath, the son of the Majumdar family, then just a small boy, got Haridas's association. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a verse that says it specifically, when Haridas Thakur was staying at the Majumdar's home, when he was staying at Balaramacharya's home, Raghunath received Haridas Thakur's mercy, and that this was the reason, by a Vaishnav's mercy, he later achieved the association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We're doing a little chronology of Raghunath's life to come to Vrindavan and reside in Vrindavan, reside at Radha Kunda. The next major event after receiving Haridas Thakur's association and mercy, we hear of an event when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. So Raghunath was a small boy when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was 24. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, we know from Chaitanya Charitamrita that there was a trick that Nityananda played, and instead of going to Vrindavan, he went to the house of Advaitacharya. And when he went to the house of Advaitacharya, this young Raghunath was very eager to get his association, Lord Chaitanya's association. Because, we'll do it again, the priest of a Majumdar family, Balaramacharya, was a disciple of Yadunandan Acharya, and Yadunandan Acharya had an intimate relationship with Advaitacharya. He was his disciple. So there's a close relationship between the Majumdar family and Advaitacharya. So they went to spend time with their spiritual master, their priest, his spiritual master, and his spiritual master, Advaitacharya, when Lord Chaitanya came. Naturally, they're Vaishnavas. When he was there, because of the intimacy with the families, Advaitacharya, being very affectionate to the little boy Raghunath, because he's a great Vaishnava, naturally, he arranged for Mahaprasad every day that Lord Chaitanya was there for that period of time to go to Raghunath. We don't hear about it in Chaitanya Charitamrita, but the life of Raghunath records this way. So now he's gotten the association of Haridas, and then some nice association with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then after Lord Chaitanya left for Puri, Majumdar family went back to Saptagram, and the Yadunandan Acharya and his disciple went back to Chandapur, and life went on. But he's now has a taste and an attraction for Lord Chaitanya. And he's still young, and sometime later, not too many years later, but sometimes later, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to visit Vrindavan. But he made a detour to go to Vrindavan, to go to the place where Raghunath Das and Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami were residing at Ramakeli. And then from Ramakeli, he went a little bit further north to Kanai Natashala, and then on the advice of Sanatana Goswami, he returned back to Puri. But when he was returning back to Puri, he stopped at the home of Advaitacharya. And when he was at the home of Advaitacharya, Raghunath was around 19 years of age, still not married, young man, but very attracted to Lord Chaitanya. So he wanted to go. He wanted to go and he wanted to go. And his parents were a little worried because their son is so spiritual and non-material, and who knows what he'll do. So they were reluctant, but finally they agreed by sending basically some guards and some other people to make sure, he stayed normal. And so he went, and he was very, very eager, very, very eager, 3 times, very, very eager to leave this material. His family were Vaishnavas, but they were quite immersed in material affairs, and he had no attraction for that. He wanted Lord Chaitanya's association. So while in Shantipur, remember Lord Chaitanya's a sannyasi and he's returning back to Puri, he somehow managed to get audience with Lord Chaitanya. And he appealed to Lord Chaitanya to relieve him from this materialistic association, although they're Vaishnavas, relieve him of this materialistic association and come into his association instead. This was his focus. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's recorded in Chaitanya Charitamrita, these are the words that he spoke. Calm yourself and return home. Don't be foolish. It takes time to cross the ocean of material suffering. Don't make a show of Markata Vairagya, monkey renunciation, simply for other people's benefit. Enjoy the worldly life in a moderate way without attachment. Be fixed on Krishna internally while externally dealing with the world in the appropriate fashion. It will not be long before Krishna delivers you. So those were his instructions. And the feverish mentality that he had in between the first meeting and the second meeting of Lord Chaitanya dissipated. He became kind of normal, like a normal young man. And so when they went back to Saptagram, the Majumdar family were very relieved to see that their son had become normal again. So their surveillance slackened a bit. Then comes the next major event in his life. The Majumdar family, it's described in his biography that their annual income was 800,000 rupees. And then change that to our modern times, and it's several hundred times that was their annual salary. And I did the math, and it's their annual income was somewhere in the range of $3 to $4 million. That was their annual income. And their income was, as landholders, they were assisting the king in taking taxes from people that were working the land. And then a portion went to the king, or the Shah, the Turkish ruler. So the Turkish ruler had an in-between man, like a middleman. And the middleman was given a title, Chaduri, kind of like a tax collector. So the landlord, the normal system was, the landlord had land, The landlord received taxes from people that worked the land, and then the landlord would give money to the Chuduri would give it to the Shah, to the king, Nawab Hussain Shah. And the Majumdar family had an arrangement with the Shah that they gave their money directly to the Shah. They cut off the middleman, the Chuduri. And the Chuduri didn't like it, so he became their enemy. So the system, the numbers go like this. It was, the Chuduri was supposed to get 25% for his personal use of whatever he received from the landlords. And then the balance, 75%, would go to the king, or Nawab Hussain Shah. Majumdar family cut out the middleman, and so they gave less to the Shah. They gave what the Chuduri would have given to the Shah. So that increased their profit, their annual income substantially. And the Chuduri started complaining to the Shah. And the Shah sent a representative, like a constable. And he wanted to confront Govardhan and Hiranya Majumdar. Like, what are you doing? Although it was an arrangement with the Shah. So they were to be arrested, but they when they knew that this was going on, they got out of town. So when they came, they questioned Raghunath, where's your father and your uncle? He said, I don't know, they're out of town. So they arrested him, put him in jail. And then this Turkish Muslim Chuduri came every day to harass Raghunath, saying, where's your father, where's your uncle, and where's the money, and what's going on, and every day, because he wanted his money. And this is an exhibition. It's spoken of consistently about Raghunath Das. Is he knew how to do worldly things. He was instructed by Lord Chaitanya to act in a normal way. He knew how to act in a normal way. He just had no interest in it. So one of the times that Chuduri visited, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita, he reasoned and spoke very sweetly with the Chuduri and said, my father and uncle are like your brothers, because they both have a relationship with Nawab Hussain Shah, Chuduri does, and his father and uncle. So you're like brothers. And in village life, it's like that. It's not just blood brothers, but brothers. Anyway, the behavior of brothers is difficult to understand. Sometimes they fight amongst themselves, and sometimes they are loving to each other. Today you are arguing, but tomorrow I am sure that you will reconcile with each other. I am your son as much as I am my father's, and therefore you are my protector. It is not right for one such as yourself to punish his dependent. I need say no more, for you know the scriptures and are practically a living saint. Now that's what's written. There are probably some additional words, but the mood, the softness, and the gentleness of Raghunath and the eloquence, it softened the heart of the Chuduri. And he began to cry with affection, saying, from now on, I will consider you as to be my son. I will find you an excuse to have you freed today. Have your uncle meet with me and make arrangements so that I can get my share of the revenues. Now, the punishment could have been, whatever, but he just wanted his money. So if he gets his money, so it all worked out. it all worked out. The purpose of narrating this, and within Chaitanya Charitamrita as well, is Raghunath Das did have a sense of worldly life. He just had no interest in it. So after some time, Raghunath, started developing an intense desire again to be with Lord Chaitanya. So his parents were trying to make an arrangement to get him married, and he had no intention to get married, and he would run away. And when he would run away, they would send guards to go find him and bring him back. And then he would run away, and they'd go and get him and bring him back. And it's happened so many times. The wife of Govardhan, Majumdar, said to him, lock him up, tie him up, do what you did before. And this celebrated statement by his father, Govardhan, he has as much wealth as Indra, the king of the gods. And he apparently was married. And his wife is as beautiful as the heavenly courtesans. If these things have not been able to capture his spirit, then how will mere ropes be able to do so? The father who gives life to a child cannot interfere with the effects of his previous lives' actions. Sri Chaitanya Chandra has given his blessings to this boy who can keep prisoner when it has been made mad, by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So the shackles was his wife, and the shackles was money, but money and women was insufficient. He was already beyond the allure of money and women. And so he resigned himself to just have to keep watch on him. Time passed, and then another significant event took place. So he's gotten the mercy of Haridas. He got some blessings from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now he's going to get the blessings from Lord Nityananda. Very, very significant. Lord Nityananda, Raghunath heard, was visiting in Panihati, which is along the banks of the river Ganges. And Raghunath very, very much wanted to go see him. And so he managed to get away, and he went to Panihati, and he fell before the lotus feet of Lord Nityananda. And of course, Lord Nityananda is very funny, so he started calling him names. He said, like a thief, you don't come near me, but simply try to run away. Now that I have caught you, I shall punish you. I want you to feed all my followers chipped rice and yogurt. This is the celebrated Chitta Dahi festival. I mean, in Atlanta, they call it New Panihati Dham, and every year they have a Chitta Dahi festival. So they do in Panihati also. So Raghunath, that was not punishment. He was saying this punishment, and you're a thief, or like a thief. Because you're like a thief, you're staying away from me. I'm going to punish you. I'm going to make you do some service. So he was very happy to do some service. And with his wealth, he gathered together all the ingredients to make a big festival with chipped rice, with condensed milk, and chipped rice with yogurt. And there's many other mangoes and many other things involved besides just those two things. And supplies were brought from here and there, and the villagers came. Nityananda is there, so they came from everywhere and started serving it out. The description is there were so many people they couldn't fit in the land, so some of them were half immersed in Ganges water. And when the distribution began, to everyone's sight, Lord Chaitanya came to personally be present. And when he came to be personally present, it shows in this painting, the two lords were feeding each other from the pots. Because you see those two little clay pots. Everybody had one of each kind of chipped rice. And then in the background, there's the big pots where everything was kept. Then they began chanting and dancing in great ecstasy. And it was a grand festival. Everyone was very happy. And so at the end, after everything had been distributed, Raghunath Das came before Lord Nityananda. So you see Lord Chaitanya behind Lord Nityananda. But he's begging for his mercy. The mercy that he's begging for is he wants to be relieved of his material condition and join Lord Chaitanya. That's his desire. So Lord Nityananda put his foot on his head. Here's from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Raghunath emotionally asked Nityananda through Raghava Pandit, because he had this way. Raghunath Das was very humble. Even when in Puri, he never directly spoke to Lord Chaitanya. He spoke through Sarup Damodar. So he didn't speak directly to Lord Nityananda. He spoke through Raghava Pandit. Raghava Pandit is the person at whose place this festival was held. How he could possibly gain freedom from his material entanglements and obtain the association of Mahaprabhu. Nityananda, the ocean of mercy, placed his feet on Raghunath's head, and he said, "You arranged this feast on the banks of the river, and Mahaprabhu was merciful to you and came here himself to enjoy it. He blessed you by accepting the offering of chipped rice and yogurt. Then, after watching the devotees dancing, he took prasad in the evening. Lord Gauranga came here just to deliver you, and now he has removed any impediments which remained. He will turn you over to Sarup Damodar, and making you his confidential servant, he will keep you by his side. Go home now and forget your worries. You will soon be able to go to the Lord without any difficulties." This is a theme that happens several cases, where persons get the mercy of Lord Nityananda to get the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Or in case of Jiva Goswami, to get residence in Vrindavan. But there was some step in between to prepare him for his service in Vrindavan. Or Krishna Das Kaviraj got the mercy of Lord Nityananda to go reside in Vrindavan. Here's Raghunath getting the mercy of Lord Nityananda to get Lord Chaitanya's association and become free from materialistic life. Now that mercy of Lord Nityananda came as a result of the mercy of Haridas Thakur that resulted in the association with Lord Chaitanya. It's besides the aesthetics and the chronology, it's an important spiritual principle that we need to be aware of in order to get the mercy of Krishna. So he went back. He was very relieved to hear what Lord Nityananda had to say and his abundant mercy. So he went back to Saptagram and conducted himself in a quite normal way again, but all the while meditating on how to get away. So a circumstance arose where the Yadunandana Acharya, you remember his name, he was the disciple of Advaita Acharya and the spiritual master Balaram Acharya. Yadunandana Acharya was responsible for the deity worship. And as the night was going on, Yadunandana Acharya and Raghunath were walking, and he was in anxiety because one of the pujaris was unable to perform his service to the deity, so he had to find someone to take that service to the deity, or that he was something like that. He was late in sleeping or something. So Raghunath said to Yadunandan Acharya, you can take rest, I'll take care of this, because he's very capable of worldly things. Oh, Yadunandan Acharya felt relieved. And so it was like an hour before the sunrise, and Raghunath saw, now is my chance, I can get away. Because there were no guards. He was with Yadunandan Acharya, who was now going to go take rest. And off he went. And he decided to not travel on the roads or even the little paths. He went just through the jungles, with eating 3 times in the course of 12 days. And he just traveled and traveled and traveled and traveled and traveled to go from his place to Jagannath Puri. It took him 12 days. And when he reached Puri, he went straight to the side of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spoke, when he saw him, there's some detail. The detail is, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mother was Sachi. Sachi's father was Nilambar Chakravarti. Nilambar Chakravarti had a relationship with the Majumdars, a friendship. And the Majumdars called him a name that he's the father, and he, Nilambar Chakravarti, called the Majumdar family like son. And they had that affection for one another. So Lord Chaitanya was already well aware of the Majumdars, who they are, what they're like, and Raghunath wanting his association. So he spoke in a way that one wouldn't otherwise, unless you have that close family relationship. And he spoke very disparagingly about the Majumdars, saying, how materialistic they are. They're Vaishnavas, but they're so attached to their wealth and their positions and so forth, and you've been relieved of this very dark, very contaminated situation. Krishna's mercy upon you. So then Raghunath took the opportunity. He indicated, Lord Chaitanya indicated, you should stay in the care of Sarup Damodar. And so Sarup Damodar made an arrangement for a place for him to stay in Jagannath Puri. And in course of time, Raghunath Das, through Sarup Damodar, wanted to hear instructions from Lord Chaitanya about how he should live his life, and in this mood of renunciation. So these are instructions from Lord Chaitanya about the mood of renunciate. Do not listen to gossip, nor engage in gossip yourself. You should not eat very palatable food, nor should you dress very nicely. Always chant the holy name of Lord Krishna without any expectation of honor, offering all respect to others. Mentally render service to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. So that's Lord Chaitanya's advice to a renunciate. And very well known is the next set of events, which I'll not go into detail because it's well known. But gradually, he reduced his eating. Initially, when his father found that Raghunath was missing, it was around that time that Shivananda Sain was traveling with the devotees to Puri. Annually, that was their program, to join Lord Chaitanya for Rath Yatra, etc. So guards went, asked Shivananda Sain, where's Raghunath? He said, I don't know, which was true. And so they came to know later that Raghunath had made his way to Puri, and it was like too late. They tried so many times to stop him. couldn't stop him. So when it came time for Rath Yatra, some guards and some other people were sent with money to give to Raghunath so he wouldn't have any inconvenience. And Raghunath accepted the money, but used the money to feed the Vaishnavas. And so Lord Chaitanya was regularly being invited to have prasad arranged by Raghunath Das. And after some days it stopped. And so Lord Chaitanya said, what happened? Why is Raghunath not inviting us anymore? And the personal servant of Lord Chaitanya said he felt really badly taking money from materialistic people and then serving food based upon their material wealth, so he stopped taking the money. And Lord Chaitanya said, very good. He's understood the principle of renunciation. It's not good to take from materialistic people. So then how is he eating? And then the answer given was, like other mendicants, he stands in front of the Singhadwar gate, in front of the Jagannath temple, when the priests are leaving. And the priests are carrying with them some Jagannath prasad, and from time to time they give to the pilgrims or the renunciates that are outside. So, and that's their maintenance. That's what he's doing. Lord Chaitanya approved. And then that stopped. I didn't see Raghunath. Where's Raghunath? Oh, he felt this is very bad. I'm like a prostitute thinking this one gave something the other day, maybe he'll give something today. And so he stopped doing that. And so how is he eating? He goes to the stalls where they give free food to pilgrims and renunciates. Oh, very good. He's living a life of renunciation. And then that stopped, and it became, he didn't want to do that anymore, and so he was going to the place where the discarded food was on the side of the temple that they feed to the cows, because it's rotten, and they can't sell it in the stalls anymore, or give it away as free food because it's spoiled. That's where he goes. And he washes it. And then Lord Chaitanya went to see him. Hey, Raghunath, I hear you're having a feast. You're not inviting me. He said, I don't have a feast. I just have... So he snatched some and started eating. A very similar pastime is when Sudama Brahman came to visit Krishna with his little bag of broken rice, and he took a morsel, and Rukmini stopped him. So there's a very similar scene, the rasa, very similar rasa. So he was known to be extremely renounced and very attached to Lord Chaitanya. So we saw he lived like that for 16 years. Because you do the math, how long did Lord Chaitanya remain in Puri after he took sannyas and traveled to South India and so forth and so on? He was in Puri for 16 years. While he was in Puri, Lord Chaitanya had received from Shankarananda Swami a Govardhan Shila. He was from Vrindavan, and he made travel all the way to Puri for Rath Yatra, and made a gift to Lord Chaitanya of a Shalagram Shila and some gunja berries. Gunja berries are little red berries that are used commonly with Govardhan worship. There's lots of detail, but time. So, Lord Chaitanya worshipped Govardhan for 3 years, and he worshipped in a very spontaneous way, holding to his eyes were filled with tears, holding to his heart, rubbing with his thumb. and worshipping. And after some time, Lord Chaitanya gave as a gift those that very Govardhan Shila. We heard about the Govardhan Shila when we discussed about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So Raghunath accepted that what Lord Chaitanya is gifting me, the Shila, he's gifting me residence at Govardhan Hill. And the Kunjabiharis was Lord Chaitanya gifting him the mercy of Srimati Radharani. And so when Lord Chaitanya left this world, that was his life and soul. And so he decided, let me go to Govardhan, pay my respects to Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, and jump from Govardhan Hill and give up my life. Rupa Goswami understood his mood when he reached there and forbade him from doing that. Said, we've been here in Vrindavan in separation while you've been with Lord Chaitanya for 16 years. So you know the intimacy of his activities. You've understood the meaning of them from Swarup Damodar. So I'm giving you instruction. Besides, don't commit suicide. Stay here at Radha Kund and narrate the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya for 3 hours every day underneath a tree. And all the residents of Vrindavan, particularly Radha Kund area, would come and hear Raghunath speak. One of the persons who heard him speak was Krishnadas Kaviraj, which was the basis of his knowing of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes in Puri. Not only the pastimes, but the meaning behind the pastimes, which Raghunath Das had internalized, hearing from Swarup Damodar. So the network is there, and Raghunath Das, while living in Radha Kund, he paid prostrated obeisances 1,000 times daily. He chanted 100,000 names of Krishna every day. He served as the instruction that Lord Chaitanya gave. He served Radha and Krishna mentally, day and night. And he wrote just 3 books and many other poems. But Stavavali is one of his celebrated books. Dana Charita or Danakeli Chintamani we heard about when we did the Govardhan Parikrama. It's the pastime, the tax pastime on top of Govardhan Hill when the gopis were going to bring milk products and ghee and everything for the yagya that Bhaguri Muni was going to perform. Very, very delightful book. And Mukta Charita, well-known book, the Pearl Pastime. We're going to hear the Pearl Pastime today. We're going to run out of time. Here's an English translation of Stavavali, and here's a little excerpt from Stavavali. It's in different groupings, and one of the groupings is Vilapa Kushamanjali, or Bouquet of Lamentations, 104 prayers to Radharani. This is, the painting is meant to be Radha Kund. In the background, that's Varsana. Oh, restless-eyed girl, your lake, it's Radha Kund, is the eternal home of you and your beloved. My residence is there. There I stay. So he's fixed in meditation upon Radha and Krishna. And Stavavali is a nice collection of his expressions of love for Radha and Krishna. There's a 4th book that has become well known in ISKCON, with several translations and several seminars given on this topic. One day I'm thinking I'd like to do that, Manashiksha. It's 14 verses with verse and commentaries by acharyas. Here's verse number 1 of the 14. O my uncomprehending inner self, my dear brother, mind, I humbly prostrate myself before you, taking hold of your feet. I beseech you, please give up all pride and surrender fully to Sri Guru, to the abode of Vrajadam, to the residents of Vraja, to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, to the Sattvika Brahmanas, to the holy names of the Supreme Lord, and to the ever-fresh and youthful divine couple of blossoming beauty, Sri Sri Radha and Krishna, and in this way quickly develop sublime attachment to them. These are his inner contemplations in Manashiksha. He's a very sublime devotee. He's not the literature that some of the other Goswami, Prabhupada and Sanatan were, but his writings are very deep and very moving. There's an incident in his life while at Radha Kund. He had the practice of eating as his food every other day a leaf cup of buttermilk or chash. So one time, one of his assistants named Das brought him a very large leaf cup, and he was admiring. Wow, this is very large. Where'd you find the leaves? And Das said there's a particular tree that grows only at Sakhi Stali. This is the place where Chandravali and her gopis resided during Krishna's time. And immediately Raghunath Das threw away. The particular tree is called a Palasa tree. Here's what it looks like, a leaf cup. So he threw it away. He said, never bring this to me again. He was so much in the mood, spontaneous mood of the love of Radha, that even hearing the name Chandravali was repulsive to him. Now, we are not to imitate, but that gives you an idea of the kind of intense love that he had. There's some other pastimes which we'll touch on when we go to his samadhi. He left this world at the age of 92, right near the Gopinath temple. So when we visit the Gopinath temple, we'll visit his samadhi, and we'll hear some other stories about Raghunath Das. So off we go to visit the second of our third places. This is the Radha Kunjabihari temple. The same name, Kunjabihari, is the name of the deities that Bhaktisiddhanta gave at his headquarters in Mayapur. The main deity there is Radha Kunjabihari. No, the main deity there is Gandharvika Giridhari. There we go, Gandharvika Giridhari. So Radha Kunjabihari. And there's where it is on the left. Of course, look differently from that angle we looked at. There's the outside structure, and inside there's the deity on the left. No, excuse me, that's his sitting place, I believe. And the deity on the right, it's winter time, they're all bundled up in nice garments. Here's a close-up of the deities. You figured out how to make the sound come out that way. That's good. So Radha Kunjabihari. And going down that path a little further, you saw from the very beginning, where we're going next is to the Malyahari Kund. Malyahari Kund, from the outside, doesn't look very fancy. It's quite simple. That's what happened here. It looks like a green algae pond. But my sound on this end is way down, so that's why it's soft. Anyway, you can hear the background. There's some nice music. This is the place where the Pearl pastime was performed. And in ISKCON, the Pearl pastime is a well-known and quite celebrated story. And the story in Mukta Charita begins in Dwarka. In Dwarka, Satyabhama was speaking to Krishna. And one day she said, I heard that when you were in Vrindavan as a young boy, you made a garden of pearls from pearl trees. Can you tell me something about that? And Krishna then responded. One day, on Diwali day, in the month of Kartik, Srimati Radharani and the gopis assembled at Malyahara Kund. And as they were assembled, Krishna's parrot, Vichakshana, informed him. So Krishna went to Malyahara Kund, and there he found Srimati Radharani and her Sakis. And Krishna asked the gopis, what are you doing? And the gopis said, one of the gopis said, we're making pearl necklaces for our favorite cows. Krishna then said, can you make 2 more? For my favorite cows, Harini and Harshini? The gopis said, no, we will not. Krishna pleaded, just 2 necklaces, please. The gopis said, go away, you're troublesome. Krishna, just 2 small necklaces, please. Lalita said, you can have this small broken pearl for your cows. So Krishna then decided he would go find Mother Jasoda. And he asked Mother Jasoda, I want to grow a pearl garden. I want to make pearl necklaces for Nanda Maharaj's cows. And Mother Jasoda replied, Gopal, pearls don't come from trees. Pearls come from the ocean. And Gopal, very stubbornly, adamantly said, no, no, no. They will grow. I've been with Nanda Maharaj so many times, and he puts these little seeds in the ground and covers them up and waters them, and all kinds of things come out of the ground. Please give me some pearls. I want to make a pearl garland for all Nanda Maharaj's cows. And he pleaded again and again how children will do. And Yasoda finally relented. And so Yasoda went to her treasury and gave him some pearls. And he took those pearls to the bank of the river Jamuna, and he dug little holes in the ground and put the pearls in the ground and watered the pearl garden with Jamuna water. And then little shoots came out of the ground after some time. And so Krishna was really pleased. And he wanted the gopis to see he's going to grow his own pearl garland, a pearl garden. And Krishna wanted some milk to add to his pearl garden. So he sent Madhumangal to the gopis to get milk for his pearl garden. And the gopis just laughed at him. So Krishna went to his mother and asked his mother, "Can I have some milk for my pearl garden?" And she was very eager to give some milk. He took all the milk that she gave him, all the milk that he wanted, and he poured milk onto his pearl garden. And sure enough, the shoots were coming out of the ground. And Krishna was very, very happy. So he brought the gopis, I want you to see my pearl garden. So they went to look, and they laughed. And they said, "Those aren't pearl trees, those are thorn trees." And they laughed at him, and they left. And Krishna said, no, it's not going to be a thorn bush, it's going to be a pearl tree. And sure enough, after some time, very beautiful pearl tree began to grow, so big and colorful and fragrant. And he showed it to the gopis, and he started making pearl necklaces for Nanda Maharaj's cows. And the gopis were really competitive. They couldn't be beat by Krishna. So they decided they were going to make a better pearl garden than Krishna's pearl garden. And so they found a very special place, and they got their own pearls. There weren't enough pearls to make a big pearl garden. So Radharani approved they could take pearls from their parents' storerooms without telling them, and they placed them in their pearl garden. And after some time, little shoots came out. They wanted to show Krishna. Krishna laughed at them and said, "That's not pearl trees, that's thorn trees." And after some time, sure enough, it was thorn trees. So now the gopis are, not only they didn't compete properly with Krishna, but they're in trouble because they took pearls from their parents' storeroom. So how are they going to put those pearls back? So that the decision was made that certain gopi was really good at bartering, and they sent a bartering gopi with some of their ornaments to see if they could barter with Krishna for some of his pearls. And as they were bartering with Krishna for some pearls, there's the largest part of the book. I haven't read the whole book, but it's the bartering. You know, one Vaishya and another Vaishya bartering over how much was the worth of his pearls. And because he had been humiliated several times, he was joking with them, saying, all that wealth that you have in that container isn't worth one of these pearls. Just see how big they are, see how colorful they are, even they're fragrant. Where are you going to get a pearl like this? So you can't have any pearls. And the gopi was very disappointed, and she went away and told Radharani. So Radharani was now in double anxiety, how we're going to put these pearls back from our parents. And Krishna started thinking, Radharani's going to be in big anxiety. Let me make one necklace for her. I've already made necklaces for all the cows, not only all the cows, all the peacocks and all the monkeys in Vrindavan. This painting shows there's that peacock with a necklace, there's a monkey with a necklace, and here's a cow with a necklace of pearls. So Krishna was ready to make a nice pearl necklace for Radharani. And it was such a nice necklace, he decided to put it in a golden box engraved with her name. And so he became so inspired, he wanted to make a garland for each of her main gopi friends with a pearl box, a golden box inscribing their name on the box. And he did all this nice service for them. And after he gave all this nice service, the gopis were really pleased. And here he's giving some pearl necklaces and golden boxes. Yeah. Chandra Mukhi and Kanchanalata. Those are the names of the bartering gopis. So Krishna made gifts, and then the gopis were so pleased. Radharani decided, let's do something for Krishna and the gopas. Here's Krishna offering Radharani her necklace, and there's so many pearls she's feeding the swans. So they decided, let's make a nice feast for the cowherd boys, and that's how the pastime ends. They're having a nice feast for Radha and Krishna, and the cowherd boys also have nice prasad, and that's the end of the Mukta Charita pastime. And it started at Malyahara Kund. So that's our time today. I was going really fast because I was looking at the clock thinking, gosh, how are we going to finish this? There's further details in this whole narration, but there we are. So let us step back and meditate on what we just discussed. When we go to Vrindavan and see a pond that looks like just like an algae pond, we're not likely to see what Raghunath Das saw. Because how is he able to describe all these pastimes? The answer is the pastimes were revealed to him. For those devotees that are very, very advanced, it's described in Sri Brahma Samhita. It's called Sva Rasaki. Sva Rasaki means so much absorbed in the holy name that from the name, the qualities, the form, the qualities, and the pastimes, Namarupa Guna Lila, are revealed. It's not, this Mukta Charita pastime is not in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's the realization within the heart of Raghunath. He's not interested in fiction stories. He's interested in sharing his experience of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. And so advanced devotees can give us insights into pastimes, but the real inspiration for us is how are we going to get the mercy of devotees like Raghunath Das so that we can perform our bhajan, our chanting and our practicing and our prayers and our reading and our worship and our everything, such that Krishna is in our hearts also, and he shows himself to us and reveals himself. At least we can hear from those who have such qualities with deep appreciation. And it's part of, circling back to our very beginning, it's part of visiting the Holy Dham, which we're not unable to do physically, circumstantially, so we're doing it virtually. The association with the personality of Godhead is through sound, initially, then Nama, then Rupa, then Guna, then Lila. So that's our virtual visit. System is through sound, and of course these images are fantastic. These are artists that are, according to their artistic gifts, they're putting in a visual form the same understanding that's there in a sound form. And we're able to visit through seeing and through hearing. But the descending mercy is in both forms, the sights and the sounds of Krishna's pastimes. And we pray for the mercy of Raghunath Das Goswami. to gift us with some portion of that humility and very deep, eager desire for service to Radha and Krishna that he achieved. That's our Gaudiya process. It's our process of awakening our loving attraction for Radha and Krishna and visiting Radha Kund. There are several days ahead of us. It's filled with the same, with much diversity, but filled with the same mood of very, very strong love for Radha and Krishna. That's why it's so excellent, this Radha Kund place. Okay. Do we have any discussion on these topics?
Maharajai, I have a question.
Yeah.
But it's from yesterday's class. Dhruva Maharaj uses the word honest when he's making the request to Narada Muni, and it was explained that Prabhupada explains that he did not want to get it through hook or crook. But any instruction from a personality like Lord, like Narada Muni, would be it wouldn't be something that is in the line of hook or crook. It would be absolute and it would be honest by nature. So how do I understand, or my question is focused towards if there is something more to the specific request where Dhruva Maharaj mentions the word honest.
For a person offering a prayer or verbal expression of some kind, it doesn't mean that the person on the other side would do something dishonest or crooked or deceiving or something like that. It's more a matter of revealing one's own heart than it is, appealing to them, don't do something dirty or crooked. In that particular case, or that I can't think of anything at the moment, but it also, there's other circumstances that struck me. Why are they speaking like this? But it's an expression of their own heart. That's all.
Maharaj, I was thinking about where eventually Raghunath Das Goswami rejects the money from his family because it comes from materialistic people. So why should we not accept money from materialistic people and use it in Krishna service? Because then wouldn't that be a good thing? Because you're then using that in Krishna service.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. But his renunciation was pretty severe. There's this story of Giriraj Maharaj when he had taken sannyas from Prabhupada and was living in Bombay as the president of the Bombay Temple. I mean, I haven't heard this directly from Giriraj Maharaj, but I heard it in recordings, that his father offered him, you leave Hare Krishna movement and I'll give you $1 million. So one could argue, hey, take the $1 million, leave Hare Krishna movement, and use the $1 million in Krishna service somewhere, because that's like a lot of service, a lot of facility can be with $1 million. But he didn't. he told his father, no, I can't leave. So he was being honest, So it's not the same, but it's similar. Don't receive something that has a material motivation behind it, because it's with material motivation. That was the motivation of his parents. It wasn't just like, let's make sure he doesn't have any discomfort. It was purchasing him. The mentality of his parents. That's one way to look at it, at least. And I don't want to feed the Vaishnavas or Lord Chaitanya with money that comes with that hook. Or it's just, going further and going further and going further and going further in this mode of renunciation. And the mode of renunciation, something is that can be used in Krishna service, accept it, use it in Krishna service. That's renunciation. His renunciation was more intense. It was, my consciousness is being contaminated by thinking of expectantly of the money that I'm going to get from my parents, and my mind is contaminated by that contemplation. So let me not have that contaminated contemplation. Let me just live and maintain myself in a simpler way. It's an intense degree of renunciation. Go ahead.
So then as a follow-up to that, is
Okay.
that something we as aspiring devotees should eventually strive for? Is that something we should not like?
My understanding is it's very subjective. One's mode of renunciation may be different than another's. And, the principle of renunciation is, as you've understood, dedication of everything to Krishna. That's the principle that Prabhupada has given us. And his mode was subjectively, I don't want any contamination within my mind. I only want one thing, dependence upon Krishna. So I don't want to depend on something, because then my mind becomes contaminated. So your question is this to be cultivated? And I would say it's a question of, it's subjective. It's a little bit, there's a very nice explanation given in relation to Sudama Brahman. And the explanation there, it's in commentary, but Krishna gave unlimited wealth to those who could not be attracted to it. And Krishna didn't give wealth to Sudama because Sudama purposefully, his type of renunciation is, I don't want it. I'll become contaminated. So I don't want it. So it was a different type of renunciation. But Ambarish Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj and others that had no attraction for material enjoyment could be in the midst of material opulence and not be attracted. And there is, aside from whether you can be attracted or not attracted, there's moods of renunciation as well. And so let's just say, who is more renounced? It's just different moods. Was Ambarish Maharaj less renounced than Raghunath, or was Raghunath, was he a material kind of renunciation because he should have accepted affluence without being attracted to it? He just had a certain mood. So we should aspire for that which, in principle, brings us in full, unobstructed, undistracted attention to Radha and Krishna. That's a journey. So then largely the journey is you engage things that are in relation to Krishna and Krishna service. The risk is when you do that to become attracted to those things. And don't, and then it becomes dry. So there's risks on either side. Dry renunciation. And that's kind of like what Lord Chaitanya said to Raghunath. It takes time. So live in the world without attachment to it. And the mercy will come. So we aspire for that which is going to bring us closer to Krishna and be realistic about it. What your capacity is and how you handle being around material opulence. If not, then don't. Keep it get a distance. Anything else?
Question from Amara Devi Dasi.
Yeah.
How to understand the application of scriptural references when we hear the pastimes that are realizations of these great Vaishnavas? Here, principle of Guru Sadhu is there, but Shastra are not narrating these pastimes. How to understand and explain this if required?
Do you understand the question? I don't understand the question. There's emphasis on Guru and Sadhu, not so much emphasis on Shastra. That's what she seems to be saying. But I don't see why there's no reference to Shastra. It's application of Shastra according to time, place, circumstance, but it's not minus reference to Shastra. So I don't understand the question. She can clarify the question. And we're after 9 o'clock, so anything else online? Okay, that's it. Thank you, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.